It goes without saying now that Marvel Cinematic Universe movies, and indeed comic book movies in general, are packed to the rafters with Easter eggs, references, and details that aren't particularly easy to spot.
Well, you're not wrong.
2017's Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 was no different. In fact, given that Nerd King James Gunn was directing, it's probably fair to say that it contained more fun inclusions than most movies. In this video, we'll look at 10 of them that you probably missed. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button. It's the best way of keeping up to date with all of Screen Rant's great new videos.
Showtime, a-holes!
Mattel Football. Remember that scene right at the beginning of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 when the titular team were tasked by the Sovereign to fight the Obelisk, the multidimensional being that was devouring the power sources on their home planet? Well, you may also remember that Peter Quill was holding a gadget in his hand prior to the creature's arrival. It was clearly some kind of sensor, as its screen depicted the 5 members of the Guardians of the Galaxy in green, while also showing the incoming Obelisk in red. But did you notice what the gadget actually was? It was a modified Mattel Football game from Earth, and another important nod to Quill's past. Mattel Football was a handheld game that was first released in 1977, which was just before Peter Quill was born, but it certainly makes sense that they'd still be around when he was growing up. It was incredibly popular, and it could be argued that it was the first major standalone handheld video game smash hit.
That's intense.
Interestingly, it has also been featured in a number of other movies before its appearance in the Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, such as 1996 crime comedy Bottle Rocket and 2001 satirical comedy Wet Hot American Summer.
Prepare for a really bad letdown!
Berhert. Early in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, when the titular team were attempting to escape from the Sovereign's hostile fleet, and while Rocket and Peter Quill argued about which of them is the better pilot, Gamora pointed out that they could find safety if they headed to a nearby planet. That nearby planet was Berhert, which Gamora actually named during a loud combat sequence, and the name also appeared on the screen briefly alongside a string of coordinates specifying its location in the universe after the Guardians crash-landed there. For most Marvel Cinematic Universe fans, and indeed most casual comic book fans, the name Berhert means nothing, but it's actually quite important in the comics. It's the home of the Sagittarians, and it first appeared way back in 1969 in The Incredible Hulk #111. Its people, the aforementioned Sagittarians, are a race who were thrust into a conflict involving the Hulk, a character called the Galaxy Master, and their own leader, Princess Daedra. Could Berhert's inclusion in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 be hinting at that story coming to the MCU at some point? It's certainly not out of the question, but it's a cool Easter egg regardless.
You know what they say, you're out of luck until you've gone duck.
Contraxia. While the Guardians of the Galaxy were on Berhert, doing their best to avoid the wrath of the Sovereign and getting better acquainted with Peter Quill's father, Ego, there was a different kind of action going on another planet. The planet in question was Contraxia, where Yondu and the Ravagers were shown to be enjoying some debauchery befitting of their characters, in the form of alcohol and brothels populated by robotic ladies of the night. Like Berhert, Contraxia may have seemed like an irrelevant planet with a silly name, but it also has more significance than meets the eye. In the comics, it's the homeworld of Marie, the mother of the powerful hero known as Jack of Hearts. The planet needed a solution to their dying son, so when an Earth scientist came up with a possible free energy that he called Zero Fluid, Marie went to Earth in human form and married him. Marie was ultimately killed in a tragic accident, leaving her son, Jack Hart, to be doused in his father's chemicals, resulting in him gaining energy manipulation powers.
Is he cool? Hell yeah, he's cool.
Now that we know Contraxia exists in the MCU, we may see Jack of Hearts in the future of the franchise.
No, what?
Kronans. There was a very funny and memorable scene in Volume 2 in which Rocket, Yondu, and Groot made 700 space jumps to reach Ego's planet in order to help Peter Quill. You remember it, right? It was the scene where their faces distorted in a hilariously cartoonish way because they weren't really supposed to make that many jumps. Their journey took them to a variety of different locations across the cosmos, including one where Stan Lee's character was hanging out with a group of watchers, probably boring them to death with stories about his time on Earth.
Hey, wait, where are you going?
but one of the locations they jumped through briefly showed a species that Marvel Cinematic Universe fans know quite well. It only lasted a couple of seconds, but two Kronans could be seen fighting on an unidentified planet. They're the same species as Korg from 2017's Thor Ragnarok, and that huge roaring warrior that Thor turned to rubble in 2013's Thor the Dark World. Who knows, one of them might even have been Korg prior to his enslavement on Krugarr. It was a really smart little Easter egg that further emphasizes the fact that all Marvel Cinematic Universe movies take place in the same reality.
I have found meaning.
Eternity. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 was undoubtedly the most cosmic of the MCU's movies to date, so it was no surprise to uncover the true meaning of this particular moment in the movie. When Ego was revealing his plan to take over the universe to his son, Peter Quill, he tapped him on the forehead and gave him some kind of cosmic vision. As a result, Peter's eyes turned black and starry, and he said he could see eternity. To most people, Peter was simply referring to the fact that he could see everything in existence, or the fact that he could see beyond the edge of the known universe. But the most clued up of Marvel fans knew he was referring to the cosmic being known as Eternity.
Really?
In the comic books, Eternity's whole body just so happens to be black and starry, just like Peter's eyes during his vision. The gigantic and immensely powerful character had previously been pictured in the first Guardians movie as well, on the walls of the Temple Vault on Morag, right at the start of the movie. Eternity played a major role in the Infinity Gauntlet comic book arc, and if these MCU Easter eggs were foreshadowing the introduction of the character on the big screen, things are gonna get awesome real quick.
Pete, come on.
Peter's grandfather. So, do you remember what Ego's big plan was in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2? He planted his celestial seeds all over the universe with the intention of combining his power with another celestial being, in this case his son, Peter Quill, in order to have those seeds grow all over the cosmos and shape the universe in his own image. Well, when Kurt Russell's character put his plan into action and started to take over the planets where he'd left those seeds, a gigantic blue cosmic blob started growing near a Dairy Queen in Missouri and began to envelop the planet Earth.
That's disgusting.
At one point in that scene, the blob only barely missed crushing a car. It was very easy to miss the fact that the passenger in that car was none other than Peter Quill's grandfather, played by Greg Henry, who was making his second appearance in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, having first appeared as a younger version of the same character in the first Guardians of the Galaxy movie. And the fact that we know he's still alive opens the door for a reunion between Grandpa Quill and his long-lost grandson in the future of the franchise.
Who?
Simon Williams. Suffice to say, you definitely missed this one because it wasn't actually in the movie, but it's definitely still worth including here. When Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 was still in production, some interesting details were spotted on a small town set. It was in a scene on Earth at an event called the Simon Williams Film Festival. There were a number of fake movie posters that featured frequent James Gunn collaborator Nathan Fillion as the actor Simon Williams. There was a movie starring Williams as Tony Stark in a movie about Stark's life, a movie called Archon, which looked like a Conan the Barbarian type adventure, a generic romantic comedy called Oh Rebecca, an action thriller called Dead Before Arrival that looked similar to The Bourne Identity, a horror called Haxan 2, which looked very similar to Horns, and the awesome sounding Toxic Janitor 2, which was a takeoff on The Toxic Avenger, a movie by the brilliant Trauma Company where Gunn got his start in the world of making movies.
Awesome!
The reason this is important, even though the scene never made it into the movie, is because Simon Williams, the guy Nathan Fillion was playing in those posters, just so happens to be the superhero Wonder Man in Marvel's comics. So we now know that he exists in the MCU.
And look, sir.
The Troll Doll. In the first Guardians of the Galaxy movie, Peter Quill quite literally trolled Yondu when he replaced the orb with a troll doll, when Yondu thought he was going to be getting his hands on an Infinity Stone. When the leader of the Ravagers died in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, Peter placed that very same troll doll by his side. It was easily distinguishable as the same one because of its checkered jacket, and that brief, easily missable moment was more important than people might have realized. It meant that Yondu had kept it because it had sentimental value. in spite of the fact he was expecting to possess an Infinity Stone in its place. Instead of feeling angry and betrayed at Peter swapping the items and double-crossing him, Yondu was actually proud because he brought him up to be a smart Ravager.
Yeah, Quill turned out okay.
Yondu specified in the movie that he felt as though he was Peter's real daddy, and the fact that he'd kept an item that reminded him of his adopted son proved that he cared for him and he wanted to be reminded that he'd done a good job of raising him. Of course, Yondu also quite clearly enjoyed collecting silly little trinkets, so there's that too.
It's a Ravager funeral.
Eldritch magic. In one of the many mid-credits scenes of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, Sylvester Stallone's Staker O'Gord reunited with his former teammates. They were Aletta O'Gord, played by Michelle Yeoh, Martinex, played by Michael Rosenbaum, Charlie 27, played by Ving Rhames, Mainframe, played by Miley Cyrus, and Krugarr, who must have been completely CGI because he apparently wasn't played by anybody. It's the worm-like Krugarr that we're going to be talking about here, as he did something pretty important when Staker O'Gord's team got back together. When O'Gord suggested that the team should go back to their old ways, every team member agreed in their own unique style. Krugar's method of agreeing with his leader was to conjure a mandala in the shape of a thumbs up, a mandala being a fiery holographic shape created using Eldritch magic. What people might not realize is that Eldritch magic is the same exact thing Doctor Strange and the Masters of the Mystic Arts have used previously in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. In the comics, Krugarr was actually Strange's apprentice, and he went on to succeed his master as Sorcerer Supreme. His use of Eldritch magic could be hinting at something similar happening in the MCU's future. The credits. As with all Marvel Cinematic Universe movies these days, it's well worth watching Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2's credits, and not just for the mid and post-credits scenes. The credits themselves were full of fun Easter eggs for viewers to spot, and some pretty cool songs from the soundtrack played over them to boot. Pretty much every major character in the movie, from Nebula to Peter Quill's grandfather, was seen dancing along to the music, while Howard the Duck also made an appearance. But a couple of characters who weren't in the movie appeared too. Cosmo the Space Dog, who was briefly seen in the first Guardians movie, was one of them, and Jeff Goldblum's Grand Master from Thor Ragnarok joined in with the dancing. David Hasselhoff, who briefly appeared in the movie itself and sang on the soundtrack, also appeared, saying, "We are Groot." Speaking of which, amongst the text on the screen, the words "I am Groot" could be seen on a number of occasions before transforming into credits. And finally, just like in the credits from the first Guardians movie, the words "No raccoons or tree creatures were harmed during the making of this feature" were included, but this time they were followed by the words, "The same cannot be said for the handlers of said raccoons and tree creatures." Nice.
It's a fake laugh.
And that's the end of our video. Did you enjoy it? Did you notice any other important details in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2? Let us know your thoughts in the comments section below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Screen Rant for more great videos like this one. See you soon, guys.